Great, thank you for the nice introduction. It's wonderful to be back at this conference and to see it growing. How many people, just before we get started in the room, actually own or have owned some crypto assets? About half the people are willing to acknowledge it. Maybe a few others don't want to raise their hands for security reasons. Fair enough. Anyone here holding their rent money in Bitcoin? You need to make a rental payment, say, at the end of the month, and you've put that into Bitcoin. Anyone here doing that? Okay, I'm glad to hear that because, as you may have saw, the price dropped pretty significantly last night, over 10%. Nothing like the 50% swings we used to see back in late 2013. This 10%, 20%, that's nothing. All right, for those of you who are newer to this space, 50% is where it starts to get my attention. But the timing of this drop actually is a really nice setup for what I'm here to talk about, stablecoins, and some new research that we published on this emerging category within this broader world of crypto assets. Stablecoins, I think, nicely illustrate, some of the real innovation and activity that's going on in categories that are emerging in the crypto asset space. Other categories that are becoming more important include decentralized cloud computing and cloud storage, gaming. There's lots of different kind of sectors now within this space, and this is a study of one of those sectors. Before I get into the stablecoins report, though, let me just briefly say a little bit about what I do currently. So when I was here last year, I was a full-time academic. I've since kind of taken off a little bit my academic hat and stepped more into the private sector. So Mosaic is the Bloomberg of crypto, creating a more reliable data platform for people like myself and other researchers to really understand the space. And then blockchain, where I accepted the head of research position in spring, is the world's leading provider of wallet software. Have created over 30 million wallets for users, so have millions of users. Over 20% of all Bitcoin transactions actually flow through the blockchain wallet. And you may have heard recently we just announced a massive airdrop of Stellar Lumens, XLM. This is the largest consumer giveaway in history. $125 million worth of Stellar is going to be freely distributed to blockchain wallet holders. And one of the reasons Stellar decided to choose blockchain as a platform for distributing XLM to millions of hopefully new users who will come into crypto assets for the first time because they can get free access to currency is because blockchain.com wallet holders control their private keys. All right, this is a non-custodial wallet. And this is a really important part of what makes cryptocurrency and blockchain technology special, this decentralized ability to be your own bank, to really hold your own private key, okay? So with that out of the way, with the advertisements out of the way, let's now get into the state of stablecoins. What is a stablecoin? Let me start there because I sometimes skip over this. I just assume everyone knows what a stablecoin is, and that's not true. A stablecoin, unlike Bitcoin, unlike Ether, has some mechanism that is built into it to try to help it maintain price stability, all right? Bitcoin doesn't have anything built into it to try to regulate its exchange rate against the US dollar, but stablecoins do. Stablecoins do. That's the key difference. In other ways, they're very similar to Bitcoin. They're programmable currency, all right? They can be held in a wallet like the blockchain wallet, but they have some stability mechanism, all right? So this report, by the way, and the contents of it, we're just going to preview some of the highlights from the report, is freely available for download from the blockchain.com website, as are these slides. But in the report, we touch on the landscape, the current use cases for stablecoins, levels of adoption, and then we try to look into the future. Where is this whole stablecoins category going? So first, one of the main findings from the study was just how many stablecoin projects there are. We counted close to 60 stablecoin projects when we published the report in September, and the number has grown since then. But stablecoins are not new. They started coming onto the scene really in 2014 when TETHER was introduced and others. But it was last year when we saw the use of TETHER really rapidly grow on exchanges like Poloniex, where that exchange didn't have access to US dollar deposits, right? Yet traders wanted some kind of currency they could trade out of that offered some stability. And many people saw Tether's success last year and said, whoa, wait a minute, we can do a better Tether. All right, Tether's got all these problems, there's all these questions about its, whether or not it's really got the money in the bank and so on and so forth. So we just saw a ton of stablecoins projects get started, close to 60 now, and about 40% of those are live. There are two main types of stablecoins, all right? So for those of you who are newer to the stablecoin subject, this is an important kind of thing to understand. You have asset-backed stablecoins like Tether, all right, that are holding something like US dollars in reserve or crypto collateral. So Make or Die holds Ether in reserve in a smart contract. Or you have algorithmic stablecoins that don't have anything backing them at all. Okay, asset-backed and algorithmic, all right? And within those two main categories, there's all sorts of variations, right? So I think we can understand more easily the asset-backed category, something like Tether. Why is Tether stable roughly 1-to-1 with the US dollar? Well, because it holds $1 US in reserve for each Tether unit that's been issued. That's a pretty simple thing to understand. But what about these algorithmic stablecoins? How do those work? So basically, an algorithmic stablecoin has an algorithm that is adjusting the supply of the stablecoin as demand adjusts, okay, to try to maintain an equilibrium at the exchange, at the peg, at the 1-to-1 peg. So imagine an algorithmic stablecoin that sees a spike in demand, and the price goes up to, say, $1.05 when it's supposed to be at 1-to-1, okay? New supply would be issued to bring the price back down to 1-to-1. That's in essence kind of how an algorithmic stablecoin is basically trying to function, to maintain that price stability. And that's really the more bleeding edge area of the stablecoin space. So let's talk about some of the other things we found from this work on stablecoins. So 77% of all stablecoins are asset-backed. So the vast majority of stablecoins are using some type of collateral to try to maintain stability. Only 23% actually are algorithmic. Now, interestingly, of the asset-backed stablecoins, more than half of those are using crypto collateral rather than fiat collateral. That's pretty exciting because fiat collateral, something like Tether, means you have to bring a bank into the picture, right? A trusted intermediary. Whereas a crypto collateralized stablecoin, one like Make or Die, is more trust minimized, arguably. You can see the collateral in a smart contract, you can audit it, it's more automated. And a majority of the asset-backed projects are choosing to be crypto collateralized. What else did we find? We found that stablecoins are actually being built on top of existing blockchain platforms like Ethereum. And actually 60% of stablecoins are using the Ethereum blockchain. 10% are using Ethereum plus something else. And then another 30% are using something completely different, something like Stellar, something like EOS, something like Bitcoin. Is that high or low for Ethereum? It's a data point that I think people who are trying to think about, is Ethereum going to win this race to be the dominant smart contract platform? Is something we can consider. And then in terms of what these stablecoins are pegged against, US dollar is the dominant peg at 2/3. So stablecoins are spread throughout the whole world. This is a picture of where the teams are based. Europe, along with the United States, are the two leading areas for stablecoin development. And then legally as well, we see Europe, again, in the lead alongside the US. Switzerland actually is the second most popular jurisdiction to domicile legally your stablecoin. Lots of the leading investors in crypto assets have put money into stablecoins. And there's two main takeaways from this slide here. Number one, some of the best names, Pantera, A16, Polychain, some of the most successful crypto investors are backing stablecoins. That's key takeaway number one. Key takeaway number two is you can see that they're backing multiple stablecoins. A16 has invested in 3, actually 4. So many of these VC funds are putting money into 3 or 4 stablecoins. What does that tell us? Well, it tells us they're not entirely sure about kind of the future state of play, or they think there are going to be multiple winners, right? It's not going to be a winner-take-all scenario, but there's actually going to be a number of stablecoins that are going to be successful. In terms of funds raised, over $350 million in venture funding has been put into stablecoins to date. So that makes it one of the most well-funded categories in the crypto asset ecosystem. And Basis has really raised the most funds of all, over $130 million. I haven't seen this level of activity within kind of the blockchain kind of ecosystem since really the growth and interest in DLT and distributed ledger technology in 2015, 2016. We counted over 70 DLT service providers back then. This is the largest category that I've seen emerge since then. In terms of where the funding is going, I think one other interesting finding for me was that the asset-backed stablecoins have actually raised more money than the more cutting-edge algorithmic stablecoins. Off-chain asset-backed and crypto collateralized have raised a total of $177 million compared to $174 million for algorithmic stablecoins. So what does this tell us? How do we interpret this data? Well, this says something about, I think, investors' perception of the likelihood of success for these two different models. They both could be, important going forward. But also it points to, I think, some questions that people have about how successful algorithmic stablecoins may be. This is cutting-edge technology. It hasn't really been proven yet. So people who are thinking about, what's more likely to be stable? Well, asset-backed stablecoins are more proven than algorithmic ones so far. Okay, use cases. What can you do with stablecoins? Well, you can do a lot of the same things you can do with Bitcoin, but where you need some kind of reduced volatility is where a stablecoin has real value. So I mentioned the example of paying your rent, right? Or imagine you're in Venezuela trying to avoid being expropriated due to the inflationary monetary policies in that country. Should you be buying Bitcoin if you're a Venezuelan who doesn't have a lot of reserves? Arguably not, right? Maybe something like a stablecoin makes more sense to store value. Using a stablecoin to make payments also could be more compelling than Bitcoin. A lot of people don't want to use their Bitcoin to make payments. All right? They think their Bitcoin one day is going to go back up in value, so we want to hodl it, right? We want to hoard it. Whereas a stablecoin that's designed to actually maintain a stable value is something that might see greater adoption for payments, right? Performance measurement, so being able to actually use stablecoins that are pegged to inflation would eliminate the need to, over time, do any kind of inflation adjustments. When you're looking at, say, financial performance 10 years ago versus today, something that's actually pegged to inflation could eliminate a real tedious kind of task that economists and others, accountants have to do. What is the current value or today's value, of something 1970s dollars? Lending, right? So lending in a stable coin is something that could make a lot more sense than something like Bitcoin. We've seen problems with lending in currencies that have appreciated, like the Swiss franc, right? The 2008 crisis, there were all these loans that were issued in Swiss francs. The Swiss franc went up in value. That really squeezed a lot of borrowers. The same thing can happen if you lend in Bitcoin, right? And the price goes up. So stablecoin lending could be quite interesting. And different stablecoins are targeting these different use cases as we discussed in the report. I think smart insurance is a good example for why a stablecoin could make a lot more sense than Bitcoin in terms of a smart contract application. When you take out insurance, you're not necessarily looking to speculate on what you get back. You're looking to protect something, right? And if the value of your ether in, say, your smart flight insurance contract drops 60, 70%, well, you're going to get a lot less insurance back than you thought you were because your flight was delayed or canceled, whereas a stablecoin could offer you basically, exactly what you were looking for. But today, what can you really do with stablecoins? Well, today, they're not being used really in smart flight insurance. They're not even really being used much by Venezuelans because there isn't a lot of wallet support or as stablecoins aren't as widely supported as Bitcoin yet. Mostly what people are using stablecoins today for is to buy other cryptocurrencies. So they're used on exchanges for trading purposes, all right? And in terms of how adoption has played out to date so far, Tether, as we talked about earlier, is the leader, but it's suffered a big hiccup, all right? So it's now got some competition, and instead of having 96% of the market share in terms of market value, it's dropped to 75%, right? So there's room now for other players to come in. Let me just, because I'm running out of time here, let me just wrap up. So looking ahead, don't look at this slide, just look at me right now. This is from the report. We've got a lot more data in the report. So that's one of the things I'm known for, is I'm a bit of a data geek. And we've gone through and we've rated these different stablecoins by their degree of transparency, how automated they are, how complex they are. One of the key takeaways from doing this rating exercise is that right now there appears to be a trade-off between the confidence we have in the stability of the stablecoin and the decentralization, all right? In other words, the more decentralized something is, the less confident we are that it's going to be stable. The more centralized something is, the more confident we are that it's going to be stable, all right? And whether or not that trade-off can ever be squared, where we have a decentralized stablecoin that's automated, trust minimized, but is also highly stable, is one of the key open questions in the stablecoin space. People working on this acknowledge that we're not sure whether we're going to get there, whether we'll actually ever, achieve the holy grail of cryptocurrency, as some people call it, a decentralized stable cryptocurrency. That's an open question. So to wrap up, this technology is still nascent. It's unlikely the perfect stablecoin design exists right now. We're seeing a lot of hybrid launches, so these algorithmic stablecoins are actually coming to market with assets behind them to try to maintain stability in the early days until they can grow. The idea is that maybe an algorithmic stablecoin, once it gets big enough, its algorithm might be able to help it achieve stability. So we think there's space at least for 5 to 8 significant stablecoins in the space. Some that are going to be more compliant and more regulated, that's going to appeal to institutions. Others that are more trust minimized, decentralized, may appeal to those looking to use dApps. Regulation is an interesting question. Bitcoin, if it's just going to be digital gold, that's not very threatening to a central bank. But a stablecoin, something that can become more widely used as a means of payment, could potentially interfere with monetary policy and might catch more attention from central banks. And then the last point I guess I would leave you with is that stablecoins are best viewed as a type of infrastructure, just one of the many pieces of infrastructure that are being created to support broader adoption of crypto assets. The volatility of Bitcoin, the volatility of digital assets in general, has kept many, many people on the sidelines of this ecosystem to date. All right? So having credible, stable currencies as part of the ecosystem, we think can bring millions of more people into the blockchain space. All right, thank you very much.